Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the KBEAR KB01. This is the latest from KBEAR. This time they bring us another single DD, but in a resin shell, as you can see on the bottom here, or more conventional resin shell as opposed to what we saw in the streamer, and also at a different price point. Price hasn't been totally defined, or at least I haven't got any confirmation, but it seems to be anywhere between $25 and $40. Anyway, the KBE01 has an appearance which kind of reminds me a lot of the Cadenza, and I'll show it to you in a second. It sports a 10mm beryllium coated diaphragm, and the usage of that diaphragm material is quite evident in the way that it then sounds. In terms of its overall characteristics, it's got 109 dB sensitivity, a 32 ohm impedance, so shouldn't be, and it isn't really an issue with regards to get it going. If there is anything that I would say, it's that it would perhaps match better with a warmer sounding source. Anyway, this is the sleeve of the box. The box itself, very simple affair, and in terms of the accessories, the KBE01 it's okay. I mean, the cable is not exactly the greatest. I will say that I would have liked to have seen a nicer cable, but it does make up with bringing some nice selection of tips. I mean, they're nothing special, but you've got ample selection of tips there, which will probably be able to satisfy your requirements. And it doesn't bring a carrying case as well, which is a pity. But really, honestly, the only thing that I would have liked to have seen improved is the cable. I think the IM does deserve that. Anyway, with that out of the way, onto the IM itself. As I said, it's a resin printed shell, okay, very reminiscent of the Cadenza, the TKZK Oranos, the 10 HiFi T3 Plus. So it's a shell that we've seen being used quite a few times already, at least in its kind of basic design. It fits beautifully, no issues with regards to the fit. It's got a nice ergonomic size, weight is fine, so it's not fatiguing. It does look premium to a certain extent. You can see that it's a more budget product, but it does look premium, it does look the part. And that's it. It's got a 2-pin connection. I'm using IVipQ cable with it, not the stock one, as you can see, 4.4mm. right in the tips of KBEAR07, the large size. I recommend either these tips personally, or then some complies. The complies especially helped to bring down a certain amount of extra energy that you find there between, let's say, 2.5, 3K and 6K, especially that 4, 5 to 6K area. For me particularly, it can get a little bit too much, although graphically there's no signs of any sort of peaks or anything. So I'm attributing that tonality or that timbre that is present in the KBE01 to its beryllium diaphragm. What more can I say? I think basically in terms of its physical appearance, its ergonomics, build quality, we've talked enough. Let's get straight into what matters, which is the sound. For the sound, I've got here the BGVP P05. Launched recently, and I also reviewed it recently. It's got a peculiarity, which is a feature really, which is the fact that you can change the rear and the front nozzles, and by doing that you confer 2 different signatures to the P05. Priced at about $45. It sounds absolutely fantastic. I think it's one of the nicest sounding IMs in its price point right now. Next to that, another IM which is very, very nice, which is the EPZ-Q5. It's generated a little bit of controversy because it, it's copying the Meze and so on and so forth. Well, okay, I can understand that some people might not like it, but honestly, I think it's not really an issue if it then is able to play correctly, and it does. It sounds very, very good. The Q5, the people that have heard it and that have tested it can all confirm that it sounds really nice. And this is priced at about $50, so 45, 50. This is anywhere between 25 and 40. Next to that, we've got another great IM, which is the SimGot EW200. Fantastic build quality. I mean, in terms of the build quality, it's absolutely flawless. Probably the best in this selection of IEMs I've got here. It's got a nice solid feel to it, weighty. It's got a very good 10mm driver. It's a mixture of DLC and LCP, which they designed themselves. Sounds awesome. End of story. And then the final one is the Cadenza, which is the one that looks the most similar to the KBE01. I mean, let me just pick up here both the right side so you guys can see. You know, very similar in its faceplate design, a little bit smaller the KBE01 as compared to the Cadenza. The Cadenza is also a little bit thicker. There's also a little bit of a different angle at the in the nozzle. If you look carefully, the nozzle angle is slightly different in one and the other, but otherwise they look very, very identical. I mean, nothing really wrong there. Okay, anyway, let's talk a little bit more in detail about the sound. Now, what is the sound of the KBE01? Well, the KBE01, to start with, it sounds good. It sounds much better than the majority of the launches that KBE has had in the last couple of months, and compared to its streamer brother, I mean, no comparison. End of story. This, if the streamer was to sound like this, then I would have given the streamer a nice review, and it actually it wasn't easy for me to have said that the streamer wasn't good, because the streamer is not good. It doesn't play well. That's the reality. It is a nasty IEM. End of story. As in contrast with that, we've got the KBE01, which is everything but nasty. It is a very nice sounding IEM. It is an IEM that kind of follows the same sound of all of these four that I have in front of you, with slight little nuances here and there. And its biggest issue that I see straight away, before we get into a little bit more detail, is really that it's competing with all of these IEMs, because it's going to be priced at about the same price. And that is not an easy task. If it's priced lower at $20, it's also not going to have an easy life, because you've got the likes of the EW100, you have the likes of the 7 Hertz Zero, you have the latest from Tantrum, the Tantrum 1. I mean, that is an absolute beast of an IEM. So whichever price point this actually ends up getting into, its biggest problem will be that it has very tough competition. It's not that it's not a capable IEM. It is a capable IEM, and as I said, in terms of what KB has been offering as of late, it is unquestionably the best one. Unquestionably. The sound then, what is it? It's a kind of a harmonish tune. It's got visually in the graph more bass than what it actually comes across. And again, I'm sure that all has to do with the fact that it's a beryllium diaphragm, because when, for example, I compare the graph of the KBE01 with the Cadenza, they graph very similarly, and then the Cadenza sounds much warmer, much more, let's say, laid back, as opposed to the KBE01, which sounds a little bit more alive, more bright, more with more detail. Okay. As compared to the BGVP, the Q5, or the SIMGOT, this has a sound which is more along the lines of the Q5 and the SIMGOT. It's a more open, more detailed sound. However, for some reason which I just I've been having some hard time comprehending, and again I repeat, I'm sure that it has to do with the beryllium diaphragm. Although these ones are bright, although these ones have got a very engaging and energetic mid-range, either one of these two, they never get to the point where they kind of get aggressive. And aggressive is perhaps not the ideal word that I should be using yet, but it's for me to try and explain what happens. I can crank up the volume on the Q5 and I can handle it quite well, quite nicely. And the same thing goes for the SIMGOT. And over here, I crank up the volume, and if I don't have the proper source, and I use the KN-RU7 in this particular case, if I use a brighter source, for example, it's gonna hurt me. It's gonna hurt me. And I repeat, it's me. Maybe other people won't find it that way. Maybe other people will think it's absolutely perfect. And if that is the case, kudos to you. Great, fantastic, amazing. In terms of bass, like I said, it sounds. It's got a good bass. It's got a nice, impactful, clean bass. It's got good dynamics, good resolution, good speed. It doesn't linger, detailed. It doesn't go as deep as it seems in graphs. so it doesn't rumble as much as, for example, the bass of the Cadenza, or for that matter the bass of either one of any one of these threes. I think of these three, the one that probably has the leanest bass will probably be the EW200, and this bass is more along those lines of the EW200. In terms of mids, to a certain point in the volume level, so if I'm using, let's say, normal volume listening levels, the mids here or on the Q5 or on the SIMGOT are very similar in terms of the overall energy. Male and female vocals come across, you know, fine, perfect, no real issues there. Female vocals perhaps just a little bit more energetic than the male. No, but then when you crank up the volume, then yes, then the way that it scales, it's not the ideal, I would say, and the female vocals can become a little bit too intense. Certain instruments, trumpets, saxes, and so on, can also get a little bit. Some wind instruments basically can become a little bit intense. Guitars, on the other hand, are fine. Pianos, depending again on the volume, can be a little bit too intense in the way that the notes come across. Okay, compared to the BGVP has a warmer sound compared to the KBEAR, so it's not really, well, this isn't really for me to say that it's the worst or better, or no, it's just for me to try and position it. This has got a warmer tonality, a warmer presentation. This has got a more vivid presentation. Personally, I tend towards this type of sound more, because it's been very well done. There's no lack of instrument of detail or anything here, and it sounds very, very engaging still. This one, yeah, it's really only the issue of that excessive energy that it can have at certain points of the frequency range, which for me caused me some distress. Okay, compared to the Q5, so sorry, just going back to here. So I wouldn't really say that there's a winner here. There's just two very distinct styles. Okay, as compared to the Q5, yes, the presentation now is more similar overall, but the Q5 scales better. It's got a deeper bass output than the KBEAR, at least a perception of a deeper bass output, and it's just overall cleaner up top as well. In terms of the upper mids and treble, it's cleaner than the KBEAR. It's more polished. All right, and once more, I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm sure that it's not so much the tuning, because the tuning seems to be spot on, but it's just the quality of the Beryllium gyro. The SIMGOT, basically I copy paste what I said about the Q5. It's very much the same situation, and again, I think that these two compared to the KBEAR, it's just a question of being, they are just more polished, more, you can see or perceive more detail, you can perceive cleaner notes. Female vocals especially come across in a more clean yet still as detailed manner as compared to the KBEAR. Okay, although, I mean, please always keep in mind, this is what I listen to, and taking into account my ear anatomy, that's how I hear it. Many of you will probably hear it other way around. I mean, I've seen people not like the Q5, for example, which I initially I was kind of surprised. And so it's always very relative. You know, your ears are ultimately the ones that dictate if an IEM sounds good or not. And then finally, compared to the Cadenza, we have again a more warmer presentation, more along the lines of what we have in the BGVP. So it's, you know, over here it's easier to decide which one you will pin towards, if you want a warmer, more lush presentation of the Cadenza, or if you want a more energetic presentation of the KBEAR. Please keep in mind, when I say warmer, lush presentation, this is just comparing these two. I think that the Cadenza has got more than enough detail. You know, it's warmer, yes, because the way that the bass comes across, it's got a different tonality, a different timbre, which then makes everything just sound a little bit more full-bodied. But you know, it's important that that's kept in mind there. That it's not. I'm not saying that the Cadenza is dark by any means. None of that. And that's it, guys. I mean, basically, like I said in the beginning, the KBEAR is a solid IM, very nicely put together, sounds good. I mean, I wish that this sound here was a sound that the streamer had. Its biggest issue really, it's not the sound or what it what it brings in terms of accessories, or it's not really that's not the problem. The problem here is that it has very tough competition. BGVP, Q5, SIMGOT EW200, Cadenza, and a few others which I haven't mentioned here. I mean, let's not forget the tin HiFi, the T3 Plus. Let's not forget the T2 DLC. Let's not forget the C2. There's a whole bunch of other IEMs out there which are priced at this same level, which are very competent, very competent. So as always, I would say have a listen to it and then decide what you want. All right, anyway guys, I'll show you now quickly the graphs and then we'll wrap it up. Take care. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the KBEAR KB01. Let me just take away some of these graphs here. Okay, that's the KB01. As you can see, nice enough graph. I mean, you look at it, it looks nicely executed bass, doesn't really bleed into the mids, sub bass prominence, a very gradual progressive pinna gain, peaking at around 3K, then a dip, a peak at 8 for the coupler, some extension pass. So it looks very nice. I mean, when you look at it like this, it looks fantastic. If by comparison I put, for example, the Cadenza graphs almost identical. Okay, however, the reality is this: when you listen to them, the Cadenza sounds way more bassy, okay, way more energy here, and over there, although it seems like it's got basically the same, if not even more energy in the treble as compared to the KBEAR, no, the KBEAR has got more energy in this whole area, and it's around this area, yeah, I would say anywhere between 3 and 6. It's just a little bit overly intense for me at times. Which graphically doesn't look like it, so I just can't put my finger on what it can possibly be. Compared to the EW200, this is how they graph. Again, you can see a lot of similarities, but the EW200, in the way that it presents its upper frequency here, it's just cleaner, more detailed, not as by comparison done in such a splashy manner. This is obviously not the ideal word, but that's the difference. One is very polished, very detailed, while the other one is also very detailed, but it just lacks a little bit of polish, a little bit of that class, and so it comes across as being a little bit more splashy, more rudimentary, let's put it that way. In terms of the bass, equal, just speed again is the difference. The SIMGOT, it's got a cleaner, speedier bass. All right, compared to the EPZ Q5, very much the same thing as with the SIMGOT. You do feel that yes, this area of 5 in the EPZ is a little bit prominent, but it never reaches, for some strange reason which I just can't understand, it never reaches that same sort of edginess as the KBEAR. And finally, the BGVP, which is this one here. The BGVP, again, very nicely executed bass. I mean, bass is flawless. In terms of its abilities of soundstage and 3Dness, fantastic. It just doesn't sound as energetic as you would think here in the treble. It's got great treble, great extension. It just sounds warmer overall. That's the way that it comes across, as a warmer sounding IM. And for example, when you compare it to, let me just put here the EW 200, you can see that they graph almost identical, but the EW200 does sound more intense, more energetic. Okay, anyway guys, that's basically it for the KBEAR. Nicely done IM, definitely the best one from KBEAR. Like I said, I just don't know what it is that makes it have that little extra energy over there that graphically you don't seem to pick up on it. But other than that, I mean, faultless IM, really nice. Just the fact that it's competing against a very tough segment of IMs, so this is going to be down to your personal preferences and choices. All right, anyway, now you take care. Bye bye. As always, don't forget, like and subscribe, and any questions, please feel free to ask. Take care.